We begin with the macro view from one of the world's great economic observers. Martin Wolf is the chief economics commentator for the Financial Times. Martin, does it appear to you that there is any danger that the United States could fall into a double-dip recession?
Well, the answer I like to give to that is it can't really get into a double dip because it never really got out of the first recession. Properly understood, this is true for the US and really all the other major developed countries except Canada. Their output in the most recent quarter is still at or below where it was before the crisis started in 2008. They've never made a proper recovery. Now, the question is, could they start bouncing back down further, even further below the starting point over the next year or two? Yes, that's perfectly possible, in which case this slump-like condition, which is what I think of it now, could continue for many more years.
And what gets us out of it? I mean, fundamentally, the average American keeps raising his savings rate. The American savings rate is back up to, it's up to about 5% now, from 0 or -1. And is the feeling, do you feel that probably what you're going to see is American consumers being extra cautious and, if you will, overshooting on the upside, saying, well, I'm not going to spend again till I get my savings rate up to 6, 7, 8%?
Obviously, policymakers have to stop making mistakes. They have to stop doing things that shake people's confidence, and make them feel that things aren't going to be managed in at least a moderately competent way on both sides of the Atlantic, but of course, including the United States. That's very, very important. Second, I believe that we have to accept that there is going to be this very long-term process of healing as housing markets stabilize, investment in housing stops falling. This affects both sides of the Atlantic. Unemployment finally really stabilizes, and while the household's finances are cured. We have to accept that. And while that is happening, there has to be a commitment to very strong policy support, however unpopular and risky it is. That means very aggressive monetary policy, very aggressive fiscal policy.
So let's just unpack what you said, Martin. You think that the government should be doing more to create jobs, building infrastructure, providing tax credits to corporations for investment, and you think the Federal Reserve should be doing more of the kinds of things it's been doing. For example, this latest bout of further trying to lower interest rates. But you realize this is all very unpopular in the United States right now.
I agree. This is an incredibly controversial set of issues. I have personally absolutely no doubt that's what government should be doing. I think we in the West are making the mistake that the Japanese made in about '97, tightening too soon, the mistake that Roosevelt famously made in 1937 in the US. We are tightening before the private sector has healed, before the private sector is willing to spend. And I know this is an incredibly controversial view, but it seems to me simple common sense. You've got an extremely deflationary, recessionary backdrop. I don't know whether the opponents of the stimulus are actually wanting the economy to contract. I wouldn't suggest that, but it seems to be an inevitable consequence of that. So I think the ideas that your president put forward for his recent jobs package made lots of sense to me. I just think it's too small.
What do you think the lessons from Britain are? Because Britain looked at its situation and decided that it had to create confidence in the markets. It had to engage in tightening, fiscal tightening. It cut its budget deficit. And it has had the effect of creating confidence in the bond markets. Britain certainly has the highest credit rating of any European country. But what has been the effect on the economy?
I accept that we needed some such plan, but it was far too ambitious and far too inflexible, and the effect on the economy is quite clear. The economy stopped growing completely. It's utterly stagnant, but it seems to me quite unambiguous. The lesson of the British experience is that against exactly the same sort of backdrop, very cautious private sector, very weak housing market, very very high savings in the private sector, has to be willing to spend. And as the government is cutting its deficits, the economy has basically become completely stagnant. And that's exactly what I predicted. And that's where we are. And I do hope the US doesn't follow this example, because for the world, the US matters so much more. If Britain makes a mistake, everybody can live with it. But if the United States goes back into a serious recession, which is something I really worry about, the effect on the whole world and the confidence in the US economy and in the Western economies will be really very badly damaged. This is not some trivial sort of small local thing. This is of global significance if the US does this.
Martin Wolf, always a pleasure to have your insights. I wish you were more optimistic. Maybe maybe that'll happen the next time.
I wish I were too.
And we will be back.
If this was a